everybody. As I'm going deeper and deeper into the research on our book, trying to explore different sectors and what the future of these various industries hold, I'm thrilled to have with us somebody I have known for many years, who's an exceptionally bright individual, very hardworking, with the most supreme value system of most people I have come across. It's a delight for me to personally have with us here Siddharth Agarwal, who is joining us from Ann Arbor in Michigan on a freezing winter night for him. Siddharth is an expert in the AI and robotics space, working on self-driven slash autonomous vehicles, and is here to share with us his expertise on the future of mobility and transport. Very welcome, Siddharth.
Hi, Vibha. Thank you for having me here, and it has always been pleasure working with you. So looking forward to this conversation as well.
Okay, excellent. So, Siddharth, just to open up this conversation, as we think about, writing this book, and, we thought a lot about why would people be interested in understanding what the future holds. So, why do you think it's important to even think about the future of work, and just broadly, why think about what sort of trends are going to affect us? And from your lens, why is it important to have this conversation?
I think there are multiple reasons, right? One, you want to be prepared, right? Obviously, no one can guess what will actually happen, but based on all the data you have, you want to make sure as an employee you are prepared, as a company you are prepared, as a students, that are preparing to probably study abroad, do their masters, do their PhDs, or even their MBAs. They would want to know, right, what skill sets are relevant, like say 5 years from now, and rather than what is today. So I think it's super important, especially when people are investing their time, investing their money, and getting into something. They would want to make sure that there are opportunities in that space in the future.
Okay, terrific. Okay. So you're saying, just in terms of opportunity mapping, whether you're an employee, a CEO, or a student wanting to go, you got to keep your eyes and pulse on the future. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Terrific. So now let's talk a little bit about, what do you actually do when you say robotics and AI in self-driven cars? First, could you just give us a sense of what that even means? Like what is the role? What's the job?
So right now, my role is a product is of that of a product manager. But what my team in general is doing, right, is we are trying to ensure that the vehicles that Ford puts out on the roads get safer and safer with time, right? So I mean, if you think about it, like 10 years ago, you had vehicles where there were none of these features, right? Like ACC, lane changing, even like blind spot assist, none of that, right? And gradually with time, companies realized, okay, to stay safer on roads, we need better airbags, we need better sensors, we need to provide more automation in the vehicle so that it helps people avoid mistakes and also helps us stay safe, for example, in such snowy weather conditions, right? Like if I go and drive right now with a 20-year-old car, I'll be in a very different situation than if I take the latest car from the market today and go and drive on these roads. So the technology has continuously evolved so that people are safer on the roads.
Okay, so you're saying the drive is towards safety as one of the primary concerns. Okay, is there any specific example you can share in terms of what was going on maybe 10 years or 15 years ago in terms of the actual technology, and how has that evolved now? You mentioned a few things. You mentioned the airbags and the lane changing, and but if you could you go a little bit deeper into any one or two of these areas?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, for example, right, 10 years ago, people were thinking, how do we make the cars faster? How do we make them more reliable, right? That was the thought process. Like, you had Bugattis and all these companies coming in, and then all the racing ventures starting up back then, right? Because that was the goal. And if you remember, like Henry Ford's famous quote, right? If you ask people what they want, people will say they want faster horses. But
Hmm.
today, I think that has changed. People want safer horses. And
Hmm.
with the newer generations, right, even the mindset is shifting because of like Ubers and Lyft. People don't really want to drive, like, especially in the traffic of Mumbai and some of these major cities, right? So they rather have a vehicle that does most of the job on its own, stays safe, and still gets them from point A to B.
Okay, so you are seeing that as a trend. You do think that people do not want to drive.
Not that they don't want to drive. For example, there will be situations, right? For example, if someone is partying out there and is drunk, they would rather stay safe in a vehicle that can drive itself and take them home than say if I'm going to the airport, right? I just want my car to drop me and then I'm good to go, right? So they want
Okay.
to drive in some scenarios, but there will always be these situations where they would want to avoid driving. And then same for say our elderly population, right? Like it's always
Hmm.
difficult for them to get from A to B. So there are a lot of these use cases where such technology will help.
Okay. All right. And what sort of trends are you seeing overall in the sector? How much of a shift have you seen from to electric vehicles? What are some of the larger constraints the industry overall is facing? And what sort of trends do you see? What sort of trends do you see evolving in the space?
So, I mean, I think at least in the past 5 to 8 years, we have seen the explosion of EVs come up, right? And again, this is thanks to companies like Tesla, Ford, GM, and all of this leading the way, right? Like previously, it was difficult for people to be environmentally conscious, and then also think about, right, like what they are leaving for their children or the future generations, right? Now as people are getting more and more knowledgeable in that space, they are realizing that if we don't do something today, like climate change is eventually going to get us, right? Now obviously with this EV mindset, there also comes a set of challenges, right? For example, in a lot of places, like even though you have EVs, you don't have the charging network established, right? So that reduces the usability. There was a recent, I think, article by Hertz about a couple of days ago where they are selling all their Teslas and going back towards hybrid vehicles because they are realizing that the infrastructure is not there yet, even if the
Hmm.
technology is there. And then you also have to ask the question, right? The electricity that I'm using to charge my vehicle, is that sustainable? Because still most of the electricity that comes to our homes is coal powered, right? Not really like environmentally friendly. So there are always these challenges, but in general, I think the world is moving towards the right direction. So as we keep, hopefully solutions like solar, wind power, and all of these become more efficient, and we reach a point where our vehicles are powered by green energy.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, that's very helpful, and thanks for laying out the overall sector and constraints. So as we've been talking to different people, we've narrowed down on a few factors that are going to affect the future of several industries. Some of them are obviously technology, globalization, geopolitical affairs, climate change, sustainability. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more deeper? From what you've explained so far, it obviously seems like there's rapid advancement in technology, and there are obviously issues of sustainability that are going to affect the future of mobility. Is there anything else you'd like to pick up on or work with these two and maybe go a little bit deeper and sort of explain how has the tech actually evolved and maybe put in some numbers or anecdotes or anything you'd like?
So I think globalization is a very interesting one. I mean, this is not
Okay.
something new, but then what happened during COVID, right? Like as offices were shut down and like people were working from home, now we are in a very, very hybrid landscape where you have teams. Basically, I have teams in California, in Europe, and we are in North America, Michigan, right? All in different time zones. We are all working together, right? So I think that's a really, really good thing. Like if you think about it, a company could essentially operate 24/7 with just
Sure.
different people in different time zones.
Sure.
So I think that's pretty exciting. And also from a vehicle testing use case, right? Now we can test the same vehicles in different markets, right? So the roads on Europe are very different. The conditions in Michigan are very different from California. You
Hmm.
take Texas as another example, and maybe even Asia, right? Like the road conditions on Asia are very diverse. So that's also opens up a lot of,
Wait, so
basically.
how is that happening? How is that evolving?
So basically, what is happening, right? Because we no longer have these time constraints, right? Like originally, I mean, I remember my dad, right? They used to have a 9 to 5 job, right? I don't think that's the case with like all the tech industry anymore. Like you do your work, there are like you can start when you want, you can end when you want, as long as you do your work and deliver, right? And now, especially because the same teams are distributed in various time zones, right? It's a continuous cycle. Like you do your work, hand it over to someone in a different time zone, they continue it, and so on. And especially with respect to launching vehicles, right? So like you test a vehicle in North America, then you take the same platform, go test it in Europe, then you test it in a third place, and now you have a single platform that is essentially manufactured. Say 80% of the manufacturing is the same, and 20% is catered to the laws of each of the regions, and you are essentially creating a vehicle that can run anywhere in the world.
Okay, wow. Okay. And in terms of technology, what sort of advancement has happened? Like if we were to go a little bit into the actual tech stack, if you could explain like how has it actually evolved in terms of maybe speed of processing, in terms of materials, what has happened?
So in terms of, I think speed, I mean, definitely, right? As per Moore's law, our chips are getting smaller and smaller, faster and faster, right? Intel, Qualcomm, Apple, all these companies are continuously producing smaller chips that can do much more, right? Like today's, like I have the Google cell phone, the Pixel. It can do pretty much a lot of AI that a regular laptop could do 5 years ago. So I think that's definitely the case. And now you see these ECUs or these computers in all the vehicles on the road, at least in North America as well, where they are like they have sensors connected to them, so they have eyes on the road, and they can see people moving around the vehicle. They can recognize them, and they can change the vehicle's behavior accordingly to stay safe on the road. So I think that's probably one of the biggest advancements, at least in my field, where the vehicle is essentially like a cell phone where you can just update the software and it can do more, and then it can like see the world around it and actually make better decisions.
Okay, wow. Okay, that's pretty significant. And where do you see this going? What more, in terms of features, in terms of safety provisions, what more do you think is coming?
I mean, I think the ultimate goal, right, if you ask any self-driving car enthusiast is, right, you have a car that can drive anytime, anywhere, in any conditions without any human intervention, right? Like that's the pipe dream. Obviously, it will take some time because like I cannot imagine like taking a vehicle from here and have it autonomously drive in India today, given
Sure.
like, you have so much traffic and density on the roads. So I think that will be the pipe dream, but I think we are getting there, right? Slowly and steadily, right? First you have cars that could drive autonomously on highways, then you are expanding it to the side roads, then in parking lots, and say to the airports and so on, right? I think that's probably the vision of the industry in general, that you
Hmm.
slowly expand the ODD, which is the operational domain of your vehicle, to do more and more.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. So that's the eventual, that's sort of your moonshot, that anywhere, anytime, any country, in any condition, this vehicle should be able to drive. That's the aspiration.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal of like all the self-driving companies, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
but it's also pretty hard.
It's also pretty hard. Okay. So what's stopping it? Where is the technology sort of failing, or not able to deliver? What is the gap in this sort of towards this moonshot?
So there are a few things, right? One is cost is always a concern, right? You want to develop something that people will actually buy, right? So it should be affordable. At the
Hmm.
same time, you want to make sure you release something that is safe 100% of the time, right? Like that's the ideal goal. But generally, what happens is, right, you reach 98%, 97%, and the next 2-3% is really, really tough, right? Because you want that vehicle to work in any condition. Now, even in my, I guess, 32 years, I have not experienced all conditions on the road, right? So it's very, very hard problem. You need all that data, all that experience for the vehicle to be like 100% safe.
Okay. So there is a bit of a data crunch. Now you brought up data. Uh, tell us a little bit about how this sort of data is collected. How did Google go around the world mapping all this data, and what is going on in this data space right now? And also, who owns this data? Is this data owned by a few companies in the world, and then it's sort of like an oligarchy, or is this data now centrally available to anybody who wants to access it? Let's talk a little bit about data, since this is obviously very pertinent.
Yeah, so I think it's a bit of both, right? I mean, obviously you have companies like Tesla who have like all these cameras on their vehicles. They're continuously collecting this data, right, as people are driving their vehicles and using that data to now become better, right? Same goes for Mobileye. It's an Israeli company that, so most of the cameras that you see in other vehicles today were originally like, started by Mobileye, and they started this trend of data collection. And then if you go into basically open source, right? So now you'll see a lot of these universities, even like Ford did a venture. We open sourced like a lot of our self-driving car data so that professors, students could just download it for free and then develop their own algorithms, right? So there's this research community which really cares about open source, giving stuff for free. And then obviously people need to make money, right? So you have this corporate side where they own a lot of their data that they use for their own training and development.
Okay, so there is some amount of data that's still kept with each individual organization.
I mean, I would think so. Again, I don't know the specifics for all these companies, right? But a lot of the stuff they are doing is proprietary, right? And obviously, like if you see, take any self-driving car company, right? Whether it is Waymo, Cruise, Ford, they do have these data sets that they have also released to the public, right? So it's
Okay,
not that they're keeping everything to themselves, but obviously, I'm assuming there will be a part that will be proprietary in there.
okay. And most of this data is now largely centered in and around North America.
So I've seen North America. I think Baidu has been doing a lot of work in China. I
Okay,
think those are the two of the biggest spaces that I know of.
okay. So geographically, you're seeing so two centers of EVs largely being focused on. So North America and China that are, and what about Europe?
So Europe is also doing a lot of development, but at least like again, I'm not like a big expert in this, but the EU data laws and the personal information identification, right? All that is like super strict from what I recall. So I think EU is also getting there. Like there's definitely a lot of data sets from the universities out there, but I don't know if it's the same for the corporates there because the data laws are much more stringent over there.
Okay. And other self-driven cars necessarily all, so there's electric vehicles and there's self-driven cars. Are all self-driven cars also electric vehicles necessarily? Or can you have a self-driven car that you can fuel and then send out?
No, no. I mean, absolutely. Self-driving and the way the vehicle is powered is just two different
Two different
problems.
things.
Yeah, obviously you'd want to have both in a single vehicle so that you are also, basically moving towards your goal of being environmentally friendly and also like going towards the safety goal. But there's no such constraint. Yeah.
There's no such constraint. Oh, so the current work that's being done on self-driven cars is largely being, do they even think about that as a factor? How it's being powered up?
Yeah, obviously, right? Because they, or at least like they understand, right? Like people are moving towards the EVs. It is
Sure.
just the adaptability that is taking some time. So even self-driving cars, right? Like, even though you have various levels operating on the road, we still have a long way to go, right? When it comes to that pipe dream. So what they are trying to do is converge both of them, right? So you kind of do your development on electric vehicles so that you can basically have a platform that is running both together.
Okay, okay. So that dream is also, that's also another part of the pipe dream, the convergence of everything. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, the workspace and how you've seen that shift over the last couple of years and where you see that shifting to, especially since this is a manufacturing setup. So, broadly, how much automation are you seeing in terms of the actual manufacturing? Are you seeing loss of jobs coming in the next 10, 15 years? How is the workspace going to evolve?
So, I mean, specifically, my team is not a very, I'm more into research than into manufacturing, but at least like if you visit any of the Ford facilities or one of the factories here, they do have a lot of automation when it comes to building a vehicle. So, I mean, Henry Ford invented the supply chain, right? So that you don't go to the vehicle comes to you and you put in the part or you put in the wheel or things like that, right? So that was, in fact, one of the first automations in the industry. And now you have these robots that are actually installing windshield, actually doing a lot of the work that it's very hard for humans to do. And then there's also something very interesting. So they have exoskeletons. So for example, as a human, I can only lift so much weight, right? But now if I wear this exoskeleton, I can increase that capacity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I again don't know the very specifics there, but these are the trends that are going in the industry. And now if you take, say, an example of an Amazon warehouse, right? It's basically mostly robots doing all the work there, right? Moving items from one shelf to another and so on.
Okay. So then there is a large amount of mechanization and robotics coming into manufacturing, storage, warehousing, etc. You're seeing that happen.
Yep. And I mean, especially like you always see robots in North America wherever you have labor shortage, right? So you don't want to do anything that is dangerous or dull. And that is where you use robots.
Okay, wherever there's danger or there's dullness, that's where the robots come in. Okay,
Yep.
so as you see more and more automation in our organizations, where do you think the new jobs will emerge from? Because it's when you start, you say, look, I work in research, so it's the manufacturing guys that are dealing with all this automation. So where are the growth centers going to come in these organizations, as you see more and more automation taking away jobs?
So I think it's basically, so I don't think it will like completely take away your jobs. I think it will just change the skill set, right? For example, you would want to hire people who are smart enough so that they can use these AI and robotics tools, right? And create something new. You just don't want someone who's doing a repetitive task, right? Because that is something now a software or a robot could do for you. But who at the end it's humans, right, who are writing this code, who are creating these programs. So you'd want that skill set where people know how to use these tools and how to develop them and not just focus on repetitive tasks.
Okay, you want people to be able to use these tools. Okay, so in terms of skill set, if you were going to either build your own skill set or advise a bunch of young people to build a skill set, what kind of skills do you think are needed for the future?
So I am a little biased because I come from a computer science and a
Oh,
robotics background. So if I speak just for that, right, I would say programming is a super nice thing. It lets you, create things in the world. So C++, Python are probably like, one of the most useful languages out there. Obviously, it's not like you cannot code in other languages, but that is the most applications reside in. And then I also see, like, for example, the cloud space explode, right? So like people are creating these applications on Alexa, on Google Home, on AWS, Salesforce, all of that, right? So I think that's definitely where the boom is. And also, if you think of automation, right, there's a lot of IoT everywhere, right? Like you have sensors on the vehicles, you have sensors in the manufacturing plants, you have sensors on your home, right? Even like my doorbell is basically connected to the internet, right? So you would want people to kind of build these products and develop algorithms and applications to connect to these devices.
okay, so you're still a believer in programming, because a
Mhm.
lot of people were talking to us saying, oh, now it's no longer necessary to know how to code. There's software available, there's tools that will help you do all the coding. With AI coming in, even the coders are getting displaced. So you don't seem to buy that philosophy.
So, I mean, I always think of it in this way, right? So, for example, if I were to ask you to write a paragraph in Microsoft Word 10 years ago, right? You would be correcting, or even like 20 years ago, you would be correcting the spelling mistakes on your own, the
Yeah.
grammatical mistakes on your own, right? But today, as I'm typing, Word recognizes my mistakes and corrects them, right? So, I see the same thing happening in programming, right? Like when I graduated from school, we had to write the whole code from scratch. But now you have these libraries, you have these AI tools, right, where I'm writing the code and it's actually helping me by making suggestions and making corrections. So it's actually making me more efficient.
Mm. Okay,
So
so it's adding to your efficiency, but base level, you still need to know how to write the code or what the code should entail, and then you use the supplementary help to make the code better, more efficient, smarter, etc.
yeah, and I mean, even if you think of like Chat GPT, right? Someone created Chat GPT. Like Chat
Sure,
GPT did not create Chat GPT. So
sure. So there was a coder behind ChatGPT as well.
yeah.
Okay, fine. So coding, you like the hard skills. You like the coding, the automation, the IoT aspects, cloud infrastructure. Broadly, if you were going to suggest to somebody to skill, you would say, "Hey guys, go skill in these areas." That's what you're saying.
Yep. And
Okay,
I
so
mean, I
you
would also, because now I'm in the product management role, I would also say like there are a lot of, because if you have a good AI background, right, you can also go venture in that area where you're managing a AI based product based on your knowledge and experience. So,
okay, okay, fine. So you still like the hard skills. It's still your focus area. That's what you're still advocating for. Okay. And if you were to go back to college and redo your undergraduate degree, what do you think you would do? What do you think you would do?
yeah, I think so. I mean, my undergrad was very different. Back at that time, there was no robotics. So I would have just taken all the robotics and AI classes I could. Like that is
Okay,
what I tell my cousins as well. Like at least take a couple of them so you get a feel for what it is. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But if you end
okay.
up liking it, then that's amazing.
Okay, fine. So you're big on robotics and AI because that's obviously what you do, and you genuinely believe that this is going to be transformative in terms of the future.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move to a little bit to the broader players in the sector, right? There's industry, which is a little bit of what you represent, but then there's also government, and there's educators, and there's legislation. So from your lens, for this self-driving or self-driven cars intersecting with electric vehicles, etc. What does government legislation? What does the whole ecosystem have to do to evolve to make this future happen? What sort of development would you advocate for these sectors?
So I mean, I think like at least, and this is what I'm seeing in the US is right. A lot of like, for example, US created, I forget the exact name, but an AI based committee that sole purpose was to make sure that US is going in the right direction when it
Mm,
comes to robotics and AI. Right. So we are seeing a lot of these trends where the governments are recognizing that if they don't act now, like they'll be basically left behind in this race, right? So you have like a lot of government sponsorship for university projects that are investing in these areas. You have governments approaching industry leaders to advise them, even with self-driving cars, right? I mean, governments have approached companies like Ford, GM, Tesla, all of these when it comes to defining the self-driving mandate, right? How they would want a vehicle to operate on the road. Um, you are seeing like I think some state governments even create these smart cities. Like I think Dubai is creating one where like the city itself will be designed around the technology. So a lot of that is happening, but I think like legislation still has to catch up, right? Like making something a law takes a lot of time, and like
mm,
the way technology progresses is always faster, right? So
mm.
I think there's definitely a lot of catching up to do, but I think things are moving in the right direction.
Okay. Well, as of now, obviously, self-driven cars are not permitted, right? You're not allowed to take one out on the road. So,
Depends on the state. So I think in Phoenix you have Waymo doing self-driving cars. There was some in California as well. And obviously, if something goes wrong, then you have to stop all your work, right? Like all the operations. I think that is what happened with Cruise and Uber and some of these companies in the past, right? So you have to be very, very careful. But
okay.
obviously, like some state governments are allowing it.
Okay, but obviously, for this to become a rampant success, you're going to need governments to go out and support it, saying, okay, we're opening up our roads to this. If the government doesn't support industry, in this case specifically, there is no uptake. There's no consumer uptake unless the government support it.
Yep. No, but I mean, it's happening. For example, a recent Michigan example, they are actually building a road where if a EV drives, the EV will charge itself.
Oh,
So, I
wow.
mean, yeah, so governments are realizing that, and obviously you have these pilot programs everywhere that they are supporting.
Okay, okay. So you're seeing it happening. You're seeing that there
Yeah.
is lots of movement globally. Okay, cool.
And even the
Last,
federal tax rebate, right? If you buy a EV, you reduce, you get a tax deduction in the US. So things like that are kind of the way government is supporting the growth of technology.
okay, okay, good. Okay, you are seeing it. Okay, cool. Last couple of questions before we start closing out this conversation. If you were to just fathom, like, just from a very sci-fi-ish perspective, just brand new jobs that would emerge 10, 15 years down, are you seeing any new job categories come up which don't even exist today?
Oh, don't even exist today. uh, that's a tough one. I mean, I would say I would say probably again, like this is just another dream, but biotechnology is something that I think could explode because of AI and robotics. Like it's starting to get there now, and especially with all the pandemics that we had, right? I think
Hmm,
you will see a lot of robotics people actually move towards biotechnology to start solving some of these problems. So it's basically, multidiscipline, right? Where you're using the techniques and talents from one field to solve problems in another. I think that is something that's I think happening. Like there's the startup Neuralink, I think, which was started by Elon Musk, which is trying to do some of that. And then you also see a lot of these other companies also using AI to detect cancerous tumors and
sure.
all of that, right? So the
Okay,
trend is starting.
so you're seeing that as a sort of emerging trend. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. And given everything that's going on, we've also heard of the dark side of AI, right? I've heard, examples of, how, and I'm sure you've read enough cases where they say, this is the gray dark side of AI, where if you malfunction or you malpractice with AI, it can have some serious ramifications. And on the other end, there's applications such as yours where it can genuinely enhance human lives and, overall countries and economies, etc. So, which side are you tilting towards? Are you optimistic about the future? How do you see scenarios panning out? Is there a gloom scenario, and is there a boom scenario that comes to your mind in terms of the future?
I mean, I think it's all. I mean, obviously, I'm very optimistic and positive that all of this will lead to more good than to more bad, right? Like that's what I'm thinking. But I mean, it's at the end, AI is a tool, right? Now it depends on the people who are using the tool. So you can use it in the right way and do a lot of good. Eradicate diseases, bring self-driving cars to the road, and so on, right? You could also use it to like hack public networks and do all of that, right? So I think AI for good is basically what people need. And I think there are a lot of conferences focused on that. I mean, in fact, like the lab that I come from uses AI for disaster robotics, right? So anytime there's a disaster, how do we use robots to help people out rather than cause a disaster? So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I'm glad you're optimistic about the future. And Siddharth, knowing that you are working in this space makes me very optimistic about the future of robotics and self-driven cars. So thank you so much for all your insights. When we have certain chapters of the book ready, we'll obviously be in touch. And thank you. Thank you so much for this. This is absolutely amazing.